The Rangers and Adolis Garcia have avoided arbitration, signing a 2-year deal. On today's show, I'm breaking down why that's so important and 5 players who are poised to improve in 2024. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the World Series champion Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan covering this team for 10 seasons, including all 5 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank y'all so much for making this show your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, before we get into today's show, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Now, the big news of this week that came out on Thursday is that the Rangers and Adolis Garcia have avoided an arbitration hearing and signed a 2-year contract extension for $14 million guaranteed and up to $20.25 million over the 2 years with escalators, according to John Heyman of the New York Post. Now, this is a great deal for the Rangers and a great deal for Adolis Garcia. The arbitration process is a weird part of baseball labor rights. It is an awkward process. It is at times contentious, and it has led to souring relationships between players and teams in the past. As recently as Corbin Burns, the last couple years with the Brewers, that's part of the reason why they traded him this offseason is he felt like he was deeply unwanted, because the whole process is the team arguing why you should be making less and the player and their agent arguing why they should be making more money. And the Rangers and Adolis Garcia were pretty far apart as any arbitration eligible, actually further apart than any arbitration eligible player in that first offer at $5 million from the Rangers and $6.9 million from Adolis Garcia and his agent. But with this deal, he's making more than that $6.9 million in guaranteed average for the next 2 years. Now, the breakdowns haven't quite been released yet of how much he's making which year and what those escalators are. I'm assuming there are some incentives for if he wins another ALCS MVP, if he wins a World Series MVP, if he becomes an All-Star for a third time, if he wins a Silver Slugger, Gold Glove. Usually those are kind of the escalators in there. Sometimes there's statistical escalators, like say he has another 30 home run season, or if he gets 40, or just some kind of baseline stat incentive, or awards voting if he wins the actual MVP, which, who knows, after what he did in that postseason, I cannot wait to see him in the batter's box for the Rangers again. I'm so ready for baseball season to be happening. But this was one of the last things that was on the Rangers' to-do list before pitchers and catchers report next week. That's right. It's Friday as you're listening to this. Super Bowl's on Sunday. And then officially it's baseball season, because pitchers and catchers report next Wednesday. And I'm sure we all are all very, very ready for that. But this is a big deal for Adolis Garcia. This is a big deal for the Rangers, establishing and maintaining that relationship and not having to go to an arbitration hearing where you're telling Adolis Garcia, the star of your team, the heart and soul of your franchise, who just put on the most insane postseason display I think we've ever seen from a single player, and won you that first title with the most amazing walk-off home run in the history of mankind in any sport ever in the 11th inning of Game 1 of the World Series. And you go into arbitration, he's got a lot of things in his favor. He is on the older side for a first-year ARB player at 31, so that was part of the factor in the decisions. But he does have a lot of hardware. Those 2 All-Star appearances, that Gold Glove he got this year, I don't think he's had a Silver Slugger yet. I'm sure he will at some point, if not this upcoming year. And obviously, the ALCS MVP. But getting those 2 years, buying out arbitration next year, so you don't have to go through this exact same process again next year, is great. It is great for him. It is great for the franchise. It is great for fans. It is great for everybody. Except, I'm sure there are some teams that he obliterated in the playoffs this year that are thinking, oh, I don't want to see him again. Well, too bad, because he's going to be in Texas for at least another 2 years, probably another 3, because he's under contract for 3 more years. So they did not buy out all of his arbitration years. They did not buy out any of his free agency years, which was something I thought was probably on the table. I'm sure there were a lot of discussions of a lot of different variations of this contract, what it would look like, whether they wanted to go a 3-year deal. A 2-year deal is a good stopgap, so they only have to do the arbitration process one more time. And neither side wanted to bank on what the third year, his age, heading into his age 33 season would look like. They wanted to give him a couple of years to see, all right, let's see what it is. And if he has an amazing couple of years, and maybe at that point, the Rangers look at signing him to a longer term extension to buy out some of those free agency years. But this is just a good deal all around, a good baseline salary for him this year, and buying it out next year and giving those incentives that, could add another $6 million, basically another 50% of what he's guaranteed to make is a great deal for him and for everybody involved. And just to have that not hanging over their head anymore, and to do it the day of the arbitration hearing, the morning of, when it was supposed to happen in the afternoon, it's just great news to end your week on. I mean, thank you, Chris Young, for giving us this. Thank you, Adolis Garcia's camp, for not making us worry of if that relationship had soured. Just a delightful way to end the week. The only better way to end it would be news of Jordan Montgomery signing. But hey, maybe we can wait until like Monday for that, and then we're like, all right, everything is absolutely glorious. Everything is golden. Everything is wonderful in Rangers land. But this wasn't the only big contract extension in the AL West this week. The Astros, unfortunately, signed a 5-year, $125 million extension with their star second baseman, Jose Altuve. Congratulations to him. It was kind of felt like an obvious move. Altuve was up for free agency after this year, but I don't think anybody ever thought there was another possibility of Altuve going literally anywhere else. He will now be signed through 2029, which is his age 39 season, which is kind of freaking wild that he'll be signed for that long. But hey, he's earned it. And honestly, even as an Astros hater, even as a sports hater of Jose Altuve, it's really cool to see star players, spend their entire careers with one team, have that Baseball Reference page look, clean, not have a bazillion different teams. Because for me, when I look at a Baseball Reference page, I would love there to be either like 20 different teams or just one team. It's nice for that uniformity. But the only thing I had to say in how this relates to the Rangers is the contract extension announcement from the Astros Twitter. The highlight of Jose Altuve they chose to include was not from many of the playoff series that he has won over his 13 years with the Astros. Unfortunately, they have done a lot of winning playoff series. But no, they choose to use a highlight from a series that they lost to their biggest rival very recently. The Game 5 home run, the game-winning home run that broke all of our hearts and then ended up not mattering at all, was the highlight they chose to use. Are you serious, Astros Twitter? That admin? That's the one you chose to use? There are so many more. There are so many more home runs of Jose Altuve you could have chosen. Honestly, the only funnier highlight they could have chosen to include would probably be the 9th inning Game 7 homer off Jose Leclerc. That was absolutely in garbage time. I think that would have been a little bit funnier, but I could not think of a just funnier decision to make to announce this monumentous news that everybody in Astros world was waiting for the longest time. I mean, the Houston mayor declared the 7th of February 2/7 because he wears 27 Jose Altuve Day, and that's the one you choose to include. Absolutely hilarious. delightful moment. But congrats, Jose Altuve. Congrats to the Astros. Hoping that he can, enjoy being the second best second baseman in the state of Texas with that delightful extension for him. Honestly, genuine congrats to him, because that is a cool story for him and his family. Coming up, we're going to look at 5 players from the Rangers who can improve in 2024 from what they did in 2023 and why that's so important for repeating as champs. Right after this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Ibotta. It's officially soup season. Make sure you get all the ingredients to master your recipe while getting cash back on your purchases with Ibotta. Ibotta is the free app that gives you the most cash back every time you shop on hundreds of items, from groceries to beauty supplies to toys, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns $145 per year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip. Buy that flight you're eyeing, that game you've been dying to go to, or that fancy dinner that you've been craving. Other apps give you points that don't really amount to much, but with Ibotta, just add your offers in the app, upload your receipt, and you'll get real cash back into your bank account, PayPal, or gift cards. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying the Ibotta app when you use code LOCKEDONMLB when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store, download the free Ibotta app, and start earning cash back and use code LOCKEDONMLB. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store, and use code LOCKEDONMLB. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now you can also find it on Amazon Fire TV. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every single league. Find the Locked On Sports Today channel now on Amazon Fire TV. Now, there are 5 players, actually maybe more than 5 players, but these 5 in particular are players on the Rangers I think will improve in 2024. Some of them have really good 2023 seasons, but I think all 5 of these guys are definitely primed for a better statistical year or better overall year than they had in 2023. Now, the first one may not surprise you. The first one is Josh Young. Young had an exceptional rookie season, and until he got hurt with that thumb injury, he was probably the best third baseman in the American League. I mean, he was incredibly good for those first couple of months, and he was just such a vital part of this lineup, and he produced at a level that, honestly, I wasn't quite sure that he would produce at right away. I mean, I've been a big believer in Josh Young and him finally getting his shot to, be in the big leagues and be healthy and have a healthy spring training, thankfully. It was only a matter of time, in my opinion, before he showed why the Rangers were so incredibly high on him and believed so much in him. And the first couple of months, he was the leader in the clubhouse for AL Rookie of the Year. Basically, the first 2.5 months, it felt like it was almost a guarantee that Josh Young was going to run away with this award. He had an 824 OPS in April and March and 29 games there, 26 games there. In the month of May, he had a 917 OPS, which was his highest for any month that he played more than 6 games. And then June came around, and then July came around, and he started coming back down to earth quite a bit. Then that broken thumb injury by that Jorge Soler line drive that just snared him right in the thumb and really kickstarted the kind of downturn of the Rangers in that second half, especially in August. I mean, the Rangers maintained it for a couple days after Josh Young went down to that injury, but not having his bat in that lineup, and especially after the Jonah Heim injury as well, both of those compiling at the same time, that was a rough place for those Rangers, and he performed very well in the postseason, even though he was hitting all the way down in the 8-hole of the postseason. Still a vital part of this Rangers run. Hit over 300 in the postseason, an 867 OPS, and 3 postseason home runs, including a couple in the same game in the ALCS one against Christian Javier in a game where nobody could touch him outside of Josh Young, but still a very valuable part of this Rangers team, and did fantastic, low-key fantastic in the World Series. Hit 350 with an on-base of 350 and had just 1 extra base hit, which was a double, but still a very important part of lengthening that lineup out. And the main reason I think that Josh Young can do better is not only because that was his rookie year, his first time facing big league pitching every single day, but there's one thing that I really would like him to improve. The defense was solid, He hit the absolute crap out of the baseball when he made contact with it, and he hit it exactly on the sweet spot at great angles. His sweet spot percentage, which is basically the trajectory of the launch angle. The ideal launch angle is if you're hitting it in the sweet spot. That's what this measures. He was in the top 2% of baseball at launching it exactly where he wanted to. He was hitting the top 20% of hitting the ball hard. Average exit velocity, top 15%. Expected slugging, also fantastic. But the main thing that I want Josh Jung to improve on is his swing decisions. He was a guy who had a really great batting average, great batting eye at Texas Tech, a lot of walks, not a lot of strikeouts, more walks than strikeouts at Texas Tech. A pretty high, pretty decent walk rate, not elite, but much better than it was at the big league level. And it got a little bit worse, the swing decisions. He, walked a little bit less and struck out a little bit more when he went from the minors or the college to the minors. And then from the minors to the majors, those numbers jumped way up. So in college, he had a 14.1% walk rate. In the minors, 8.3%, so still down. And in the majors, 5.5% walk rate. That is very, very low. In college, his strikeout rate was 13.2%. In the minors, it jumped all the way up to 21.2%. And in the majors, it's been 30.8%. It is, more than double what it was in college. Obviously, big league pitching is a little bit better than, minor league pitching and in college. But also, he has improved as well. And I think being a little bit better, a little more judicious about when he's swinging, what pitches he's swinging at. And also, it feels like every single time I was looking up, guys who were getting rung up on pitches outside the strike zone, it happened quite a bit in the ALCS, especially against Justin Verlander and I think Christian Javier as well. But he was really getting rung up on pitches that were called strike three that were not in the strike zone, which was making him expand and be a little bit more aggressive. And I think if he can just, bite the bullet and be okay with taking that called third strike and improving his swing decisions, because that's what's going to happen when you're taking more pitches and you're taking more borderline pitches, you're going to have some strikeouts looking. And I think, learning from Adolis Garcia, that was something that he improved on massively this year, which is what led to his massive, massive breakout is being more selective, being more judicious with his swings. He still strikes out a decent amount, but he also walks a lot more, which allows that, light tower power to play up. And I think the same could be the case with Josh Jung. So just improving those swing decisions, which I think he will. He's an absolute baseball rat. He's just obsessed with baseball. And that is something I think he'll be working on quite a bit this offseason. And that's why I think he's going to have a much better season in 24 than he did last year. The next guy I think is going to improve is Jonah Heim. Now, Jonah Heim had an all-star season. He finished second he was selected to the second team All-MLB, his first all-star season, and I believe he also won the Gold Glove, yes, this year. And offensively, he was really hot and cold, really hit and miss, which kind of has been the case with Jonah Heim for his career. He'll have an amazing month and then kind of really quiet down for a little while. And I think just being more consistent from month to month could really, really help him, especially in the back half. Now, the first half versus second half splits of his OPS were massive this year. I mean, he had an 812 OPS in the first half this year and 12 of his 18 home runs. And then in the second half, it dropped all the way down nearly 150 points to 656. I mean, everywhere from the batting average, slugging, on base percentage as well, all of those dropped off significantly. And I think a decent part of that was him coming back from injury, maybe a little too soon. The month of August was absolutely horrendous for him. Nearly over 40 plate appearances and hit 150 and a 434 OPS. That's OPS, not his slugging. His OPS was in the 400s. It was a rough way for him, and it didn't get all that much better in September. I mean, he had a 675 OPS in September. Still solid in July and in June as well, and he was amazing in April and March. 5 home runs that month and a 979 OPS in the 23 games he played in. But I think even coming off of his all-star season, a little bit more consistency, just a little bit more belief in himself of knowing I'm for sure one of the best catchers in Major League Baseball, and having that confidence of that success and, being a little bit lower in the lineup, I think he might be. We'll see where he hits every day. I don't think that really particularly matters with the construction of the lineup. But I think a little bit more consistency, a little bit more, hopefully, health in the second half, Hopefully he doesn't have to, miss some time with not a thumb injury. It was the whatever injury it was that caused him to sap his power and was just not quite the same when he came back. But hey, I think having that consistency under his belt, having a season like that, having a championship that he's coming off of, will instill some confidence in him to be even better than he was when he was the second best catcher in all of Major League Baseball, according to the people who were voting on All MLB. Coming up, we're going to look at the other three players I think are going to have big seasons in 2024, including one who I think most people are still overlooking despite his postseason success. Right after this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Happy Super Bowl to all who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and placing some super bets. There are all kinds of different fun little prop bets that you can make on FanDuel. Of course, you can make bets on who's going to win, or you can bet on what color the Gatorade is going to be dumped on the winning coach. You can make a bet of who's going to score the first touchdown, how many yards, all kinds of different fun little parlays and things in there. So new customers join today. You'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. The next guy on my list who I think will have a better season this year as opposed to last year is more about his regular season than his postseason, because his postseason was amazing. But this guy is Josh Sborz, coming off a truly the most up and down Jekyll and Hyde regular season I think I've ever seen from a player. He went into the World Series as the Rangers' seventh inning guy, and he had an absolutely sensational, incredible run in the postseason. Just one singular earned run in 12 innings pitched, 13 strikeouts, just 4 walks, no home runs allowed, only 4 hits. I mean, the guy was just locked down as automatic as you can get, and also got the save in the final game, the clinching game of the Rangers' first ever championship, with an absolutely beautiful curveball dropped in there for strike 3 called as the Rangers won the World Series. But we all saw in the postseason the highest highs that Josh Sborz can hit. And for him, last year was mostly about health. Whenever he was healthy, he was dominant. He was sensational. He was untouchable. But when he wasn't healthy, he was very gettable, very hittable, and he was hit incredibly hard. The ERA splits per month are just the most back and forth and back and forth and back and forth of any pitcher I think I might have ever seen. In 5 games in April and March, he had a 108 ERA. Then in 9 games in May, it jumped all the way up to 831. 10 games in June, absolutely sensational. 16 innings there, and a .55 ERA. Go to July, jumps up to 15. August back down to 5.79. And then in 4 games in September/October, or regular season October, a 14.5 ERA. The guy was it's so over, we're so back as a pitcher. But you look at his expected numbers, and he is the king of expected numbers being much, much better than his actual numbers. I don't know exactly why that is, mainly because his stuff is very good. His home runs, the things that he can control, the not giving up a lot of walks, check. I mean, it's about average-ish in walk rate. His strikeout rate is insane. His swing and miss rate is in the top 2% of baseball. His strikeout rate is the top 10% of baseball. Fastball velocity is there. The expected batting average and ERA were both very good. His actual ERA was around 5, was actually exactly 5.5 last year during the regular season. And it was 3.35, his expected ERA. So he got very, very unlucky. More so than almost any other pitcher, at least on the Rangers roster, maybe even in the AL West, maybe even in the entirety of Major League Baseball. That difference between his actual ERA and his expected ERA. The guy's got nasty freaking stuff, and a lot of being a reliever is about confidence. How could you not have all the confidence in the world after that postseason he just had? I feel like this is going to be a monster year for Josh Sborz. There's still questions all the way into even September of, is this guy even a guy who the Rangers should have on their roster? Is he worth a roster spot, let alone a high leverage spot in the pen? He showed in that postseason that he is that dude, and he can bring it, and he can be one of the nastiest relievers in all of baseball. The next player I think that's going to have a big, much better season in 2024 than in 2023 is one Nathaniel Lowe. Now, his defensive improvement was absolutely massive last year. He was so much better. I don't think I've ever seen a player improve their defense that much from one off season than Nathaniel Lowe did. And that was amazing, and that was awesome, and it was so needed because every out, every play mattered quite a bit, and Nathaniel Lowe's defense really helped the Rangers out. But his bat wasn't quite the same as it was when he won a Silver Slugger in 2022. It just wasn't quite as consistent. He kind of went back to the old me, as I would say, in the more passive version of Nathaniel Lowe. Of the guys on the Rangers roster, I don't know that anybody has more raw power than Nathaniel Lowe. That's even including Adolis Garcia, whose raw power is just off the freaking charts. But in batting practice, nobody puts on a laser show like Nathaniel Lowe. And one of the reasons why he had so much success in 2022 is because he was a bit more aggressive. He did strike out a little bit more. He did swing and miss a little bit more. He did walk just a little bit less. But he was doing some damage to baseballs. The second half Nathaniel Lowe in 2022 was on another level. He was absolutely nuclear in that second half, and in a way that I thought he might repeat this year in going off in the second half. But that wasn't the case this year. Last year in the second half, he hit .339 with an on-base just a point below 400 and a .964 OPS. This year, in the first half, he had a .781 OPS in the first half and then a .766 OPS in the second half. Not quite the elite level hitter the Rangers were expecting to be, and not the number 3 hitter that the Rangers were hoping for him to be. I mean, he was supposed to be the protection for Corey Seager all year long. He moved much further down in the lineup. I think he'll probably still be further down in the lineup this year. I don't think they're going to go back to hitting him third. They could, but I don't see that as a likely scenario. But the Rangers need a big year from Nathaniel Lowe. And I feel like all the tools are definitely there. He is an incredibly patient hitter. He usually makes pretty good swing decisions. He's got some insane raw power. And he's figured out how to hit fastballs a little bit better than he did and when he was with the Rays, and they didn't think he could hit fastballs or lefties. And that's also why he was so good overall in 2022. It's because he hit the crap out of lefties. This year, not so much. He also had a lot going on in his personal life of his mom being diagnosed with brain cancer. And how can that not weigh on you? How can that not make it harder to go and succeed at your job of worrying about his mother? And thankfully, she has been doing well in recovery. As far as I know, I haven't heard that many updates, but hoping and wishing all the best for Wendy Lowe and for the family. And I'm hoping that Nathaniel Lowe can have a good, restful offseason, come back. And we've seen what this guy can do when he's on another level. And if Nathaniel Lowe gets back to the 2022 version of himself, specifically the second half, you add that bat to this lineup that was already so insanely good last year, and one of the guys with some of the highest ceiling of offensive potential on this team goes and takes it to that next level. Man, this lineup can be absolutely terrifying for everyone who thinks they're going to win 81 or 82 or 85 games. That takes this team to a whole new stratosphere of potential. And the last guy on this list who I think will have a better year in 2024 than last season, that is one Jacob deGrom. Now, that is mainly me banking on Jacob deGrom's health, which has been a risky prospect the last 3 years, unfortunately. But I am an optimist. If you're not an optimist about Rangers baseball at this point in time, for right now, maybe not forever, but coming off of that World Series run, I mean, that optimism bliss is going to last for quite some time. And I'm feeling optimistic about Jacob deGrom's recovery. The expected timeline for when he comes back is hopefully some point in August. Let's say it's August 1st. And he gives the Rangers 2 months of incredible baseball and then pitches in the postseason. Even if he comes back at the midway point in August, I'm just banking on him having more than 6 starts with the Rangers this year. And I'm hoping that he has at least 1 start in the playoffs of Game 1 of a playoff series, because I cannot wait to watch Jacob deGrom pitch against the best lineups in baseball in a playoff series for these Texas Rangers while the bats absolutely crush everybody and take the pressure off him. But he still goes out there and is absolutely amazing, whether the bats light up whoever they're playing or not. Because I just cannot wait. I mean, you remember what Jacob deGrom looks like regularly. But on a mound, it is scary. It is spectacular. It's breathtaking. It is honestly my favorite thing to watch in all of baseball. Is those 6 starts from Jacob deGrom. Well, I take that back. Winning the World Series was very nice, and all of that aside. But in the regular season, there's nothing I like more than watching, the baddest dude in town, the baddest dude on earth, just go to work and just paint the corners with 99 and 99 and 102 and how, wherever else he's throwing that thing. And the nastiest slider in the game, the nastiest fastball, incredibly good changeup, and an exceptional curveball that he doesn't even ever really have to throw because all his other pitches are so insanely good. Watching this guy work is an absolute treat, and he is a big part of the Rangers' hopes of repeating as champs. I mean, every time I think about the Rangers World Series, which is probably about 8,000 times a day, 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 of those thoughts are, how the heck did this team do that with Jacob deGrom not pitching in the postseason at all? The Rangers won a championship with the biggest, ace card, biggest ace in baseball on the shelf. They really did that. And they played the 98-win Rays and the 102-win Orioles, and they swept them. And then they took the Astros 7 games, and they won every single game in Houston. And then they won the World Series against a very good, very scrappy, very underrated Diamondbacks team. And they did that with Jacob deGrom on the shelf. I'm hoping so much for a quick and healthy recovery from Jacob deGrom, and we never have to see him miss any time whatsoever. But I'm betting that he's going to make a bigger impact in this year than he did last year because, man, I cannot wait to watch him take the hill in a playoff series this year because I'm pretty darn sure it's going to happen this year. That's going to do it for this week's editions of Locked On Rangers. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy World Series champion Texas Rangers baseball.